So good afternoon, everyone. Such a pleasure and privilege to be here and to be doing this dialogue. It feels a bit lonely here. I was listening to the panel before and it felt much more cozier and warmer here. But what we'll do is I'll do my reflection of about 15 minutes to 20 minutes on this topic of how can we, in the very disrupted technological world that is established we will be in, create the most human-centric organizations. So thank you for the time and thank you for the invitation, CII. Once again, lovely to be here. You know, I wanted to reflect with you when Kennedy made the speech that we choose to go to the moon, he said, we will send a man to the moon. I think all of us are aware of that. But it is the second sentence which he said, and we will safely bring him back. And a lot of us think about, we will send a man to the moon, but actually the very, very important piece of what enabled a leapfrog to happen was the fact that we will safely bring him back. And I thought, you know, somebody mentioned this quote to me the other day, and as I was thinking about this address, I thought it is very pertinent to the era we are living in. The fact that we will be disrupted and we are getting disrupted, or it is enabling us to advance wonderfully well, whichever lens and perspective you see from a technology perspective, is a given. It is happening. I think the key here is the second piece of, are we doing everything in a way that it progresses us in a most human way as an organization, taking everybody along. And that to me is the difference between advancing and leapfrogging, to be honest. And I wanted to talk about this. And I think personally that HR has a huge opportunity and a role to play in this. And why do I think that? And it is not really, it feels very cliched with every change we do this dialogue, but I wanted to sort of talk to you about why I think it's absolutely fundamentally very, very important, and I'm seeing it play out in my work every day today. It is very important because when we see technology, what is happening is it's changing workflows. Let's start with the simple piece, right? You all with me? It's changing the workflow. It's significantly changing the workflow. What is happening is that as the workflow changes, it is changing the work we do. When you change the work we do, it is changing the worker we need. As you think about the change in the worker that we need to do that work, it is also asking us question of what kind of workspace do we need for us to succeed. And when you think about the workspace, it is also asking the question as to what kind of a workplace we need to be. So it's quite a W-driven agenda, which is heart and center of all of the work that HR does, to be honest, right? So I'll give you some examples and we'll go through this frame of workflow, work, worker, workspace, and workplace a little bit in this dialogue of mine. And so I'll tell you a couple of stories, right? So I think what happened is when ChatGPT came in about 3.5 years back, I was in a technology company, a startup called Udan at that point in time. And when ChatGPT came in, a lot of us got licenses. And that same point in time, our annual survey was running. How many of you do annual surveys? Raise your hand, please. Yeah, only so many people. I thought the whole hall would be raising their hands. Okay, so we were just finishing our actually quarterly survey. We used to do it quarterly survey and pulsing. And now it is all about continuous listening. I get it. So we were getting the data, and we had about 25,000 qualitative comments. And like all organizations, I had a team that used to take in the quantitative data and qualitative data, go back, spend a few days, build in the right work clouds, and come back to say what's our insight. A common process we all follow, right? So I let them do that, and I asked them how long and when will you come back, and they said about in end of this week. It was a Monday, so they said, let's chat on Friday. I said, well, works well. What I did is that I cleaned up all the name of the company, and I uploaded the data on ChatGPT, and I started chatting with ChatGPT on the data. It was the day that ChatGPT got released. In 30 minutes, I had some synopsis of what my insights were based on the data set. And I just left it with me. And then the team came and presented on Friday, and we had about 85% match. Right? They had spent about 5 days to cull out, read through the comments, bring in the insights. Somebody talked about data you have, how do you build the insights, right? Now, why am I telling you the story is that fundamentally the workflow is going to shift. I'm using this example just from an HR sense for you because you relate to it, but it is fundamentally happening everywhere. I'm in a manufacturing firm now. I have an operating manufacturing organization which ranges from highly manual to highly automated, right? And we are seeing workflows change significantly and consistently across this work stream. So it is not sitting somewhere else, right? And when you see that happening, and when you see the workflows changing, I mean, another example I'll give you is a lot of you possibly have manufacturing units, but the dialogue we were having is that a lot of us in automotive, in operations, needed mechanical engineers. Continue to need. Very, very important stream, right? On my 98% robotics automated line now, I need electrical engineers for maintenance. So the workflow and what you're doing, and hence the work has changed. And when the work changes, the worker profile changes. Whether it is the need of electrical more, whether it's a need of mechanical more, whether it is need of human-centric more, whether it is not about collecting data but inciting more, work is changing. And what a phenomenal time to be in HR, because honestly, organizations are not thinking systemically across this value chain. And it is upon us in HR as leaders to think systemically on this value chain. Because if we don't, we would be doing a piecemeal followership, where actually what is being demanded is a leadership from the function. So as the work changes, you need to start defining who is the worker. And imagine what kind of upskilling we need, because earlier we had a lot of time. Upskilling is not new to any of us. Not to this country, not to this generation, not to the industry, right? Many of us have grown from absolute manual to advancement and with technology significantly. I think the key difference is pace of change. That has shifted phenomenally and very, very quickly, and hence how in a mass manner we will uplift and upskill people, because ultimately we have the responsibility. What is also happening with this advancement are quite a few fundamental things on work and person who is performing the work. And this is something all of us, I'm sure since morning you have discussed. What is happening? Careers are shorter. People are talking about where is loyalty, right? But I would say the flip side of it is that today the contract is transactional. When you as an organization feel that because I haven't prepared for disruption, if I get disrupted or if I have to change, I need to change my employee. And the employee thinks if I'm not getting the best and I don't have the security, and I can't think long term, I have a transactional relationship with you. So fundamentally, the question is, how will we transcend this? It's not a question of loyalty. We are still on an age-old, many conversations I do in HR where the topic is on, let us retain the person. Whereas the person is saying, I am with you, I have been loyal, but when you hire, you apply different measures than the person who is with you. I want to be re-recruited. I don't want to be just simply be there and be retained, right? And hence, how are we thinking worker? One, from upskilling perspective. Second, what's my employer-employee contract today? How am I sustaining engagement at a deep visceral level? Am I connecting to the person's purpose? Am I actually considering it's an equal relationship? Or am I staying in an old age process? Am I re-recruiting the person knowing what they bring to the table, because if you don't, somebody else will, which is exactly what is happening in the world, right? We are talking about HR policies, and our communication has become a lot about what we like to do, and we like to call it out. It's very short-term gain. You know, it's not about really whether how many days of leave you have. You have everything from XYZ leave to somebody from Singapore was giving me presentation to say the in vogue is breakup leave, right? So how are we going to meaningfully build policies and connect with employees so that the relationship is not transactional, is what is going to determine how we flow, right? And a lot of it actually will depend upon how human you are as an organization, how you are unleashing their potential, how you are connecting and talking to them, how much they're connecting with your purpose, how much you're acknowledging, yes, workflow and work is changing, but I'm going to help you change rapidly with me on this journey. How many of you are enabling them to understand, I know you are much more savvier than me, and it's okay, I'm senior to you. I will listen to you. How many of us are talking about inclusion, not just with the respect of minor examples and segments of diversity, but broadly more inclusive? You know, today internet has changed people. You see influencers and followers. A consumer company and all of us will tell you that today our marketing strategy is not by just putting a celebrity in the ad. You have millions of influencers who make your product and concept viral. How are they influencers? They are not influencers because they had gray hair. They are not influencers because they had a single blockbuster. They are influencers because today they create content which is absorbed by everyone. So if you have content, you can influence. But just think about how we think about us as an organization, in how we build. We don't think like that at all, but that is what that generation is consuming. I will follow you if I find you interesting. I will follow you based on the value you add to me. I will follow you if the content you speak makes sense to me. Right? It's changed a lot, but a lot of our own work and worker, person who is delivering the work and the employee has not changed. And hence that needs to start shifting quite a bit, right? The third I would say is workspace. I can tell you the kind of advancements that I see, and I don't know how many of you, very simple example, how many of you use a co-pilot or an AI assistant, right? But it's just amazing if you don't use it. Like, it will double your productivity. I can tell you that, right? Gone are the days when I needed to wait for the meeting minutes. I have meeting minutes, next step actions, and who to follow up with as soon as I finish the meeting, right? There is going to be a time where your workforce and workspace will have to change significantly. Gig is just one example where you go into where expertise is, but I wouldn't be surprised that if you have an agent sitting next to a human employee. And I know it feels very sci-fi, like we are in Matrix. But the way things are changing, it would happen, right? You would have, I know we are resisting a lot, but you would go to where the talent is. And you would create workspaces where you didn't think workspace was. And hence, what does it mean from a design of workspace perspective? But the most important of it all is, what is the responsibility of an employer to create a workplace? The last one of my W. Right? It's very, very interesting. We all know, and I was reading the research that, you know, with Gen AI and AI, the employees surveyed across the world felt their faith in their employers and leaders was highest for the employers and leaders to make the right decision on governance of AI. What is the right decision? How will I govern it? How will I keep the organization safe? How will I enable my employees? The employees today worldwide feel that they would trust their organization and leaders to make the right choice. And with that trust comes deep sense of responsibility. Right? With great power comes great responsibility, said the Spider-Man. Yeah? And hence our thinking and enabling as the workflow changes, as the work changes, as the person delivering the work and employee's profile changes, as the workspace changes, how do we enable the organization to think, how will I balance human with technology? In a right manner, in an appropriate manner. There is no going away from it. Because for a company that will not adopt it, possibly is going to get disrupted. Is going to be disrupted. Acceleration and adoption, I don't think is a choice sitting on the table. It is happening, it will happen. The choice sitting on the table, however, ladies and gentlemen, and for all of us here, is how are we going to take this choice and make it our own in a way that works best for the human and best for the technology. And that's the responsibility with the employer. That's the responsibility sitting in this room with all of you across the spectrum of the W's that I spoke about, right? You know, when Neil Armstrong said that a step for a man was a leap for the mankind, right? I do think with, you know, for your organization, for our organization, the step in technology, whether it's a leap or not, will be enabled by many of you sitting in this room. And I do think that in the future, the most successful people are going to be most human leaders and are going to be the most human-centric organizations who actually accelerate technology. That is what I would say in sum and substance. I do want to leave some time for dialogue and interaction, so I'll stop here. Thank you very much for listening to me.